Hello and welcome to a new constraint in game design. Well, it's not new to the world, but it is new to us. And for this week we chose a game which you can play in the classroom to avoid feeling like this, or this, or this. Actually, that's just 3 depictions of boredom. It's all the same thing. Wrong. They're all different flavors of boredom. I've tasted them all in school, and I'm here to bring you something more refreshing. But, Zivan, you can't just make a game for school. That's like immoral. Before you start handing me anti-child corruption poison vials, remember, they have phones in their hand. And it's not at all immoral. Actually, it's just amazing. So let's get into it. What do you need to play MoRAL? You need a sheet of paper, preferably one of the math papers which has a grid on it already, but if you don't, it's alright. Then at least one pencil, preferably one in color, and you need an eraser. And that's basically all you need. Then for the setup, you need what you see here. So you need a 7x7 grid with 2 areas which are 2x2 in the corners. These are your launch areas. And then you need 2x2 squares outside of the grid, which are your factories. So this is, for example, your factory, and this is your opponent's factory. And then there needs to be an area where you will make your blueprints, and you can put this right below the grid. Okay, and now once you have this set up, you can determine who goes first and start moving through the phases of the game. And these are the 5 phases. So blueprinting, building, launching, moving, and damage. I should have written. In any case, you start your turn by making a blueprint. That is, you sketch out what kind of unit you might want to build at some point. And it looks like this. Basically, you put in a symbol. It doesn't need to be a circle, but you can also put in a triangle or whatever. And then you assign the stats for this unit. For my first blueprint, I chose to make a unit that is 1 square. Per square, you get 5 points to assign to these stats. MRAL. M stands for movement, R stands for range, A stands for attack, and L stands for life. Now, each unit has to have at least 1 life. And in this example, I chose to allocate it this way. So my unit can move 2 squares at a time, has 1 range, so it can target adjacent tiles, and it has 1 attack. So when it comes into contact with an enemy, it deals 1 damage. And it has also 1 life, so if it does get dealt 1 damage, it is dead. However, keep in mind, every unit that's in the blueprinting area can get used by both players. And now we're in the building phase. And the building phase is pretty simple. You get to mark up 1 square in your factory. For example, I choose this circle, or in real life you would draw it. So I would draw the circle in the factory. I can also, by the way, put it here. So it still counts as this unit. Only with the larger ones, it's important how they are structured. So I could put it here as well, and then decide if I want to continue building on it next turn, or if I launch this turn. I choose to launch it. So I go into launching, and that just means I draw this circle within the launch area where I drew it. But let's say I'd drawn it here, and I would then spawn it here in this area. And then you can immediately go into the moving phase, so there's no cooldown period or anything. You just move how many tiles you can move. So my circle unit can move 2. I can move 1, 2, and I'd be here. I can move 1, 2, I'd be here. I can move 1, 2, or you get the idea. But diagonally, you can move 1 for free. So it costs 1 the first time. but all subsequent diagonal movements cost 2. So I could move here and then here with 2, but I couldn't move from here to here with 2. So let's say I move it here. Okay, and now it would be my opponent's turn, and they would go through the same phases. You can skip all of them if you like, so they wouldn't have to do blueprinting, but in this example they did. So they chose to create a design which uses 2 squares. I omitted this grid because it's not necessary, so you don't have to draw it every time. In any case, so they made a unit which is 2 squares, and so they get 10 points to allocate, and they chose to do it as such. And then they would immediately move to the building phase. And now they have 2 options. They can either build the unit I created and launch it, or they can start building their own. They decide, okay, actually I want a unit that's level 2, so to speak, and they skip their launching phase and their moving phase and their damaging phase. So then it would be my turn, and I'd have again the blueprinting option, and say I want to make another 1 square unit. I could just make a square. So because this is played in a classroom, right, it doesn't really matter what you're drawing as long as it's recognizable as something different. So I can make a circle again, or I can make a circle which is a bit different, right? It can be this circle but with like black fill, right? So you just make a full circle, or you can just make a triangle. So this could be a 1 square unit if you want, and then allocate 5 points. So there is no limit to the amount of blueprints and units that can exist. It's limited by your imagination. As long as you, as both players, can distinguish each unit from the other, it works. Now that only leaves combat to be explained. It's my opponent's turn, and they've created this 3 square unit, and these are the stats. So they can move 5, and it's their moving phase. They launched it last turn and they moved it a little, and now they can move it again. So they can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now damage happens. And damage is basically, you see if you're in range, and if you're in a range, you deal as much attack as you can. So the range could go like this: so 1, 2, 3, because the second diagonal square counts as 2 steps, and 4, 5. So I am in range, and that just means I see if I'm in their range. I'm not, so I just deal as much damage as I can, which is 1 life, and that's it, and boom. Now you would have to remember that your unit spent 1 attack, so until it's your turn again, it only has 2 attack remaining. So if there was a unit which was similar to this one, say here, from the enemy, you could only deal it 2 damage, not the 3 that your unit actually has when it's blueprinted. And one more important thing, so when you move, you have to stop when you get in range of an enemy's range. So even though this piece here could move 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this unit here can target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as soon as they would make this move, we could fight each other. So you couldn't just storm your enemy and just come here and destroy this unit right there. So in this example, if my opponent destroyed my unit, they would get 1 point. You can mark it up however you like, keep score. And the important part is that every 5 points you get 1 extra square for your factory. And it would look like this. So imagine my opponent had already gotten 5 points. They would now get to add 1 square to their factory, anywhere, wherever they want. And they could now make units that are 5 squares. And that is basically the game. The win condition is either occupying all of the launch area with your units. So for example, if he did this, he would need one more here, or until the bell literally rings and your class is over and you're free to go. So whoever has more points wins. All right, and this concludes this week's episode. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the game, you find it interesting. Comment, like, subscribe, and check out our podcast where we talk about it, and of course Simon's result from this week. Catch you next time. Bye bye.